are set as a dollar amount, and the value of the different properties in the city determine how that dollar amount is spread around. So if the city needs the same amount of money to operate, and every property in the city loses half its value, everybody will still pay the same taxes because it has to be divided up that way.
5.4, right?
But what happens in any given year is that different properties change in value. And so, for example, the previous gentleman who talked about how a real estate agent said his house would sell for a lot less than what the county says it's worth, I can certainly believe that. I had a property on the market that we were trying to sell recently, and it's a tough market. As an individual homeowner, it's pretty tough to go down in the process and contest those values that the county puts on you. If you're a big company like 3M, they successfully did that and saved millions of dollars in taxes by saying that their property wasn't worth what the assessor said it was worth, and then all the rest of us got to pay that much more. So that's something that happens in the process, but to challenge your value, you have to do that earlier in the year, and that's done through the county level when you get that notice early in the year telling you what your proposed value is for the next year's taxes. So I think it's probably in March or something like that.
Pardon me. Is there anything a person can do to try to get something done about this?
You could challenge your individual property's value if you feel that it's out of line, and there's a time when you need to do that, which is early in the year. The other question about that you asked, kind of on the bigger picture, how far can it go on? That is a question that I think that all of us in government, especially at the local level, are wrestling with. We have very few options for how to raise money to keep services, and when you look at our budget and where we're spending money, as the staff explained, we're not increasing the money that we're spending. It's that we're getting less money from other areas. And so in the past, when the economy was better and when there was a philosophy at the state capitol that felt that people on fixed incomes shouldn't have to pay as much as people who maybe are doing well and have a large income, then there was a more progressive tax structure based on income rather than taxes based on property. Mm-hmm. But what we're finding is that as the state has dealt with all of its budget problems, what they've done is they've shifted the burden to us in local government. And so it used to be that they had this rebate program, the market value homestead credit, where if you lived in a home like yours or mine, that the state stepped in and said, we'll cover part of that property tax with money from the general revenues of the state. In Maplewood's case, they claim that they're going to do that, but then they don't actually give the money to Maplewood after reducing it from our property tax statements. Yes. And so that's fundamentally that's something that we're still wrestling with. And if you want to see that change, you need to demand some kind of change at the level of the state legislature to provide the services we need without having it entirely on the local property tax rolls as the way of funding it.
Thank you.
Frank, do you do your own income taxes, or do you have them done for you?
I haven't done.
Okay.
I haven't done because I lost sight of one eye here a year, 2 years ago.
Uh-huh.
So now I just have it done.
So you're only seeing half the page at a time?
What?
Never mind. There are some programs that are out there that you'd want to make sure that your tax preparer is considering. There are senior citizen discounts available. Mm-hmm. There's also discounts for disabled veterans available.
That's right.
And I know that my mother, for example, when she started getting someone to take care of doing her income taxes, she now gets more than half of her property taxes rebated to her because of the professional knows the programs that are available that can apply.
Okay, that's nice.
And so you want to make sure that your tax preparer knows of all the programs that would help you out that might give you some of your property taxes back.
Okay. Thank you. I got a little frustrated because Kathy keeps winking at me.
I think that's because you're pretty hot looking.
I think it's because I know him from church.
Oh, I see. Oh, okay. I like the hot part. Richard Lowe.
Good evening. Good evening.
Good evening.
Yeah, Richard Lowe, 1642 Brooks Avenue. And when I got my proposed property tax statement. I realized it went up 9.2%, and I was a little unhappy about that. But then when I heard that a friend of mine who also lives in Maplewood, his went down 6%, that caught my attention. How could there be such a disparity? And we both live in Maplewood. Now, I understand from listening to people talking already that the valuation, mine stayed the same, his went down a little, so that would account for some of it. And perhaps he's in a different school district. I think that's another big budget number. I think he might be with North St. Paul, and I think what mine says is the meeting place says Roseville, so I'm assuming that I'm in the Roseville school district. So that kind of explains that, makes me feel a little bit happier, I guess, or at least I'm understanding it. But even so, you know, it's just such a disparity between, you know, mine went up 9.2 and his went down 6, and I realize there's no satisfactory answer, I guess, or but I don't think we really need to get into it, but I just wanted to mention that it just seems, I don't know, not quite fair, I guess. And one other question, I want somebody to, this gentleman over here, Chuck, he used the word debt servicing. Is that money applied to the principal or the interest? What does the debt servicing mean, please? Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. When do you want to talk about debt service?
Sure. Mayor and Council, debt service, when we talk about debt service, the answer to the question very specifically, it's both principal and interest. I would note that our interest charges are significantly less for two reasons. Number one, borrowing, the cost of borrowing money has gone down. But more importantly, we did have an increase in our bond rating, so because of that, our borrowing costs have also been reduced, and so we're borrowing costed less. But when we say debt service, that's both for the interest on the bonds that we issue as well as principal payments.
And then I would also throw into the why does this happen this way mix. We have some information that shows that having to do with our 2010 value for our property and what the presumed increases would be for different levels of house value. And so in my case, according to our charts, my value of my home stayed the same from 09 to 10, or from 10 to 11, I forget which way it is. But anyway, it stayed the same. And so according to our charts, I should be paying somewhere between a $30 and $40 increase for the value of my home. But my taxes went up like $90 for the city. And so I don't understand why that is. But it's unfortunately, in my opinion, a very stupid and way overly complex process that's used to determine what your taxes are, and it is not applied equally or the same to everybody's house. And so I wish it was much simpler, but I don't like my taxes either. I mean, just the city portion, in my case, went up about $90. I don't know, it must be the mayor's fee or something that you have to pay. Kathy?
The other thing, and they'll hate me at the county, but I don't care. I've lived in my house for 35 years, and we have seen an assessor once. And that was after I called and said, excuse me, but how do you decide valuation? I understand the down and the up and the formula and all that, but the fact of the matter is, how do you know what my house contains if you've never seen it? And the response was, we do a drive-by every 3 years. I'm like, what? This is like shootings, only you do it with binoculars or what? And he proceeded to tell me what was in the interior of my house, and it was all wrong. He said I had 2 fireplaces, and I said, don't I wish? Would you like to put one in? You know, I had a finished room in the basement. Not true. They just assume for certain neighborhoods, certain age of house, this is what you have. And so they assign you what you have, and therefore they will tax you with that value. And he didn't offer to come and make any of those improvements, I have to say. But the next summer, I did have the pleasure, I guess you would say, of actually meeting an assessor person. I'm like, wow. So that's what an assessor looks like. So once in 35 years, I think they're guessing a lot of the time would be my reaction to that. And I understand they can't send somebody to every door every year. I'm not quite as dull as I look. But it would seem to me more than once in 35 years somebody could have darkened the doorstep to know what's really there. So not only do they do this valuation change, kind of what I call in the dark by a very complicated formula, but they're really in the dark because they don't really have any idea what your house looks like, which is kind of strange to me, but whatever. So whatever that's worth, you might want to, if you want to know what you really have, harangue them to have a real assessor come to your house at some point.
Mr. Nephew?
There's one other thing that I don't believe was mentioned in the staff report, but that came up in one of our earlier budget meetings, and I hadn't thought about it, but it made a lot of sense. Gail explains how we get big chunks of property taxes twice a year, and then we have to put that money in the bank and spend it as the city pays payroll, buys salt, repairs trucks, etc. Normally, the city, we have that money in interest-bearing accounts, and it used to be that if you had your money in a government money market account, let's say, you could get what today would be not a bad rate of return of a couple percent or something like that. Well, nowadays, if you've got a money market fund, you're happy to get 0.1%. And that's better than you're getting in a checking account. And that actually amounts for the city of Maplewood to something on the if memory serves, something on the order of $200,000 that we didn't get this past year compared to a year or two before in interest on the money that we just have waiting for us to spend it. And putting that in terms of the tax levy, $200,000 is about 1.25% of the tax levy. So directly, that's something where while we've had some benefit to be able to refinance some of our debt at lower rates, it also has been another punch in the gut as far as revenues that we used to have to balance the budget, which are no longer there.
All right, we'll move on then. Well, let's see. This is Mr. Hanson. I'm not sure if it's Werner or Werner Hanson. You want to come up? Do you want to come up, Werner? Good evening.
Just wondering, why did my tax start? I just got a normal mistake in 2008. I didn't file for that homestead credit, and I done it this summer. And they finally got it, and I don't want to get it, and then they're taken away from me again.
I'm not understanding what you're saying. I'm sorry. Did you catch that?
In 2003, he failed to file a homestead credit, so he lost it. And then he thought he had it back, but now they're saying he doesn't have it.
Refile?
Mm-hmm.
Our lawyer indicates that you need to refile.
What?
You need to refile for your homestead credit.
Oh, now they can. It's been 5 months last year to get it done. This summer.
I think he needs to go
And
to
I have to
Can we
redo it again every
give some
year.
help to him? I'm going to have our city lawyer get your information, and we'll help you. Okay? We'll make sure that you get the right things submitted. Okay?
Yeah, okay, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Give your name to
It's another
Attorney
one of those
Jokes.
things that the city doesn't have any direct involvement with, but we'd like to help out.
Okay, Mr. Zick.
Oh, goody.
Good evening.
It was.
Many questions. First question is, why does truth and taxation hearings always come after the election? Why shouldn't they be before the election so people can use information when they decide who to vote for? That's just a thought.